in 1997, I was touring with Madeline Peru,
Mm-hmm.
and you know the singer, and
Yeah, sure.
her first record was out, and we were doing some summer touring in Europe, and my roommate at the time in New York, um, I left him my itinerary, and I said, if anything really important comes up, you know, like you can give whoever my number, you know. Or, so it turns out that Paul called, and
Wow.
and my roommate gave him my number. I think we were in Norway at the time, and there was a message at the front desk, Paul Motian called. So I remember thinking, what, you know? So I called him back, you know, because I waited until later in the day, you know, because
Oh, cool.
and he answered the phone, and he said, yeah, I wanted to see if you could do this tour, you know. I guess Matheny had recommended me to him
Oh,
because
wow.
I'd gotten to know, you know, Pat would come back and visit his family, and he would show up sometimes at gigs at Kansas City and scare the crap out of me, and, you know, just by showing up.
Sure.
But he was always so supportive and so nice and encouraging. I mean, I think he's just always been that way.
Yeah.
But and then Wolfgang Muspiel was also the one who actually introduced me to Paul originally at an Electric
Oh,
Bebop Band gig, because Wolfgang was in the band for a
in the band,
while.
yeah.
And he just said, you should meet Paul. And I remember when he introduced me, he said, here's the guy, if you need a sub for me, this is the guy, you know. And I was like, damn, Wolf, you know.
Oh, cool.
But anyway, so Paul's like, I got this tour, and it was like about 3 months away from, and he goes, I wanted to just see if you could do it, because especially it seemed like a lot of the, you could say old school guys,
Yeah.
they would hire on recommendation. They wouldn't necessarily need to hear you. You
Yeah.
know, they trusted who told them, you know,
Yeah.
about people, which is, I always found amazing, you
That's
know.
quite cool. Yeah.
But it really kind of, I think the percentages work out.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he said, yeah, are you free, you know, in October? And I didn't even bother to look
Sure, of
my
course.
schedule. I just said, yeah, I'm free.
How cool.
I figured whatever might be there, I was just going to clear the decks,
Of course,
you
yeah.
know. So, so that was 1997 in the fall. And when I joined the band, it was me and Rosenwinkel on guitars, and Chris Cheek and Chris Potter
Oh, yeah.
on tenor, and Swallow was playing bass. So that's when I
Oh,
also
yeah,
met
exactly.
Swallow. Yeah. And uh, and you know, the thing is with Paul too, you got to understand that it wasn't like he ever fired anybody. What happened is that if somebody couldn't make a tour, like maybe both Brad or Wolfgang weren't free for that
Mm.
time period, so he seeks out someone else, and then if he likes you, you're kind of in the band.
Yeah, because
You
you
know?
stayed in the band for a long time,
Yeah,
right?
that's the
Yeah.
thing, you know. Whereas Charlie was the opposite. Like once Liberation was picked, he even if you had to sub, you were
The
in the
man.
band, and you would
Oh,
come
wow.
back, you know.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it's interesting how band leaders have their different
This is
kind of.
very cool.
I
Amazing.
think Paul was just more like, hey, you know, this is what if I like you, you're in the band, you're here now. It's just
Yeah.
like rotation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But because this band had like the most amazing guitar players since 1995, in my
I
opinion.
felt really lucky to be in that band, you know, and because I played, you know, first with Kurt, and then Ben joined
Yeah.
in 2000, and you know, and then Jakob a little later,
Bro, yeah.
and then Ben came. You know, it was kind of a little bit of
Yeah.
a trade-off there, and then but all of them are just amazing, and I was lucky, and I felt like we all played very well together. We didn't really
Yeah.
talk about it. We just listened to what each other was doing, you
But
know.
how was that like on gigs? Did it just start a tune, or did it just call a tune, or did you like have had set lists or
Paul would make set lists.
Ah, he would. Oh, okay.
He would make set lists. What was interesting when we would play a week at the Vanguard is that he would, because you have so many nights in a row, it was kind of like he was somewhat on a mission to sculpt the set list that really worked best, you know.
Oh, okay.
So the first night, it'd be like, you have to put something together because you don't really know. And it would often be just very close to what we would end up with, but he would move a few tunes around or take a tune out, put another one or something. So by even like night 2 or 3, we had our set list for the week, you know.
Aha, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Quite cool. But you also composed. I mean, like, how was he as a leader? Because you wrote that song "New Moon," I think, right? That's yours.
Yeah.
And then
Well, you know, I think both Wolfgang and Kurt had written tunes for that band too, or contributed tunes, and so it was before. So the first record I was on was Monk and Powell, which I supplied a lot of the Monk charts.
Yeah. Ah,
and then
yeah.
the other guys were transcribing the Bud Powell tunes, and we were just kind of putting it all together. But and then when we did the record Europe, you know, we recorded that after just 2 gigs of a tour in year 2000, and I remember before that tour thinking, oh, I wonder if I could write a tune that Paul would like, you know.
Oh, wow.
And I wasn't, you know, I can never force that sort of thing. But about 2 weeks before we left, I just started messing around with what ended up being New Moon. It just kind of came out. And I remember thinking at the time, oh, you might like this. And it sort of sounds like a cross between Glorious Step and Time Remembered or a Ralph Towner.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's like quite pianistic in a way. Yeah.
So our first gig was in Dublin, and I remember because Paul, you know, knowing that we were going to recording, he kind of asked people to bring in tunes. He brought in some tunes, and the band personnel had also changed. You know, that's when Ben joined, Pietro Tonolo, and Anders Christensen, and so Pietro brought in some Herbie Nichols. Paul brought in some of his. So we were just kind of trying some tunes out at soundcheck, and we tried out New Moon. And I remember we played it, and I'll never forget this, Paul looking over after we did it, and he goes, "Yeah, Steve, yeah. Sounds good, man." You know?
How cool. That's beautiful.
That's how it happened.
So beautiful.